नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवति उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। So continuing with the discussion on Bhagavad Gita, today we are starting third chapter, Karma Yoga, text number 1 onwards. Arjuna Vacha Jayasi Chet Karmanaste Mata Buddhira Janardana Tatkim Karmani Ghore Mam Niyojayasi Keshava. So, second chapter we ended Krishna describing the qualities of self-realized Muni, and then he talks about karma, gives a person who gives up desires for sense gratification and who controls everything, those kind of instructions. But then Arjun asks, "O Janardhan, O Keshav, why do you want to engage me in this ghastly warfare if you think that intelligence is better than fruitive work?" So two names Arjun took of Krishna is Janardhan and Keshav. So ultimate aim of Krishna is you should fight this war, because they are still in the middle of the two armies standing on the chariot. And Krishna gives all these wonderful instructions about the self-realized soul and to Buddhi Yoga. Buddhi Yoga meant Bhakti Yoga. So he's saying, why should I get into all this fighting and killing? You're Janardhan. Janardhan means maintainer of people. And Keshav means one who killed Keshi demon. One of the meanings is, you killed Keshi demon. You didn't kill your relatives. You didn't get into all these big wars. Of course, Krishna fought many wars with Jarasandha, not Jarasandha, I'm sorry. Yeah, Jarasandha's army. 17 times he attacked Mathura. And Krishna killed all of them, all his army, and they left him alone. But Arjun, from his perspective, is thinking, you're Keshav, you only killed Keshi demon. And you want me to engage in this ghastly warfare? Why? And when you think, and when you're teaching me that Buddhi Yoga or intelligence is better than fruitive work. See, Arjun is, one can say he did not understand, and other part is Krishna's Yoga Maya is so strong on him. That Krishna wants all these questions to be answered, because people can ask all these questions, those who want to run away from work, those who want to find excuses for not working and just leaving everything, and or they say, I'm into Bhakti Yoga or Buddhi Yoga, I don't need to perform my activity. That's not the case. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, has very elaborately described the constitution of the soul in the previous chapter, with a view to delivering his intimate friend Arjun from the ocean of material grief. And the path of realization has been recommended, Buddhi Yoga or Krishna consciousness. Sometimes Krishna consciousness is misunderstood to be inertia, that no activity. And one with such a misunderstanding often withdraws to a secluded place to become fully Krishna conscious by chanting the holy name of Lord Krishna. But without being trained in the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, it's not advisable to chant the holy name of Krishna in a secluded place where one may acquire only cheap adoration from the innocent public. In fact, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has written a nice book on this, a few few verses he had written, and then the commentaries came out later from others. It's called Vaishnava Ke. Who's a Vaishnava? And one of the shlokas in that is Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj writing about his mind, his confronting his mind and saying, what kind of Vaishnava you are? You want to sit in a secluded place and make a show of chanting every day just to get some cheap adoration from public. If, as Prabhupada said, if one is not trained properly, then one can do that. And the problem is this kind of chanting or renunciation doesn't last too long. If one is not fixed up, the fixed up position, and especially fixed up means control of the mind, has to be done. It is very, very necessary. It's not that nobody can do it or people don't do it. There are many devotees who are in Braj. They're all over. We won't even be able to find them or recognize them even if we see them. But there are devotees, bhaktas, they are at different places and they're doing their bhajan, but away from the public. They don't want any cheap publicity. But to come to that level, it's not that easy. Arjuna also thought of Krishna consciousness or Buddhi Yoga or intelligence and spiritual advancement of knowledge as something like retirement from active life and the practice of penance and austerity at a secluded place. So Arjuna also thought this is what Buddhi Yoga means. In other words, he wanted to skillfully avoid the fighting by using Krishna consciousness as an excuse. But as a sincere student, he placed the matter before his master and questioned Krishna as to his best course of action. In answer, Lord Krishna elaborately explained Karma Yoga or work in Krishna consciousness in this third chapter. Also in second chapter, that verse came, Karmane vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. That you have a right to do your duty, but you don't have right to on the results, and don't consider yourself as a cause of the results of your actions either. And at the same time, don't give up doing your duties. But that, and if that verse was a final verse, because most of the people think this is what the essence of Bhagavad Gita is, that verse he spoke in second chapter. There are 16 more chapters in Bhagavad Gita. So that's not the final verse. If we understand it through Bhakti Yoga, yes. But by this time, by second chapter, Krishna hasn't given much elaboration on Bhakti Yoga. So people don't understand it from Bhakti Yoga perspective. So further now, Krishna is giving more instructions. And Arjuna is asking questions, Krishna is going to give instructions. And then Arjuna says, Vyami Shreneva Vakena Buddhim Mohiyasiva me Tadekam Vad Nishchitya Yena Shreyo Amapnuyam. My intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be most beneficial for me. So on one side, Krishna says, do Buddhi Yoga. One side he says, work, fight this war. So Arjuna says, I'm confused. Equivocal means he's putting weight on both the instructions. In the previous chapter, as a prelude to the Bhagavad Gita, many different paths were explained, such as Sankhya Yoga, Buddhi Yoga, control of the senses by intelligence, work without fruitive desire, and the position of the neophyte. This was all presented unsystematically. A more organized outline of the path would be necessary for action and understanding. Arjuna therefore wanted to clear up these apparently confusing matters so that any common man could accept them without misinterpretation. Although Krishna had no intention of confusing Arjun by any jugglery of words, Arjun could not follow the process of Krishna consciousness, either by inertia or by active service. Inertia means no work, or by active service, full work. In other words, by his questions, he is clearing the path of Krishna consciousness for all students who seriously want to understand the mystery of the Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna is using Arjun as an instrument to give this message, so that in the future, all the students who are going to come, they don't misunderstand the essence of Bhagavad Gita, the path. But the proper way, as Arjun is shown, is by surrendering unto Krishna or surrendering unto a bona fide spiritual master. Means we don't just make out the meanings of the words that Krishna spoke in our way, because whatever we're going to make it out is based on our consciousness, on our viewpoint, on our intelligence, our knowledge. But that won't necessarily be the correct one. And definitely it can be, because fourth chapter we'll see Krishna says, I'm giving you this knowledge because you are my devotee and my friend. So until one is a devotee, one is a friend, and later on he says, because you are non-envious of me, I'm giving you this knowledge. So unless all these qualities are met, we cannot understand Bhagavad Gita. But everybody likes to write. There's 700 commentaries on Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita for karma yogis and Bhagavad Gita for corporate, Bhagavad Gita for yogis. So many are there. But everybody has practically misunderstood the meaning of Krishna's words. And then obviously there are grammatical meanings, and then there is a inner meaning. That inner meaning is what we have to understand, and that one can only understand when one is close to the heart of Krishna. Then he will know what Krishna really means when he says this, when he says that. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Loke asmin dvividhanishta pura prokta maya naga jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O sinless Arjun, I have already explained that there are two classes of men who try to realize the self. Some are inclined to understand it by empirical philosophical speculation, and others by devotional service. So two classes of men, Sankhya Yoga and Prabhupada explained here, devotional service. But Krishna said Karma Yogena, by the linking process of devotion. So Yogena, when a yoga means the link. Yoga means to link our consciousness with the Supreme. And now when it says Karma Yogena, we have to link the karma with the Supreme. So ultimately it means bhakti. But those who misinterpret, they say anything I'm doing is karma yoga. No, that is karma, not karma yoga. They're two different things. If I'm doing it for myself, it's completely karma. If I give up some of the results of my activities, one doesn't give all actually in the beginning, then that is karma phala tyaga. If somehow or other I'm linking my karma with the Krishna, that is karma yoga. If I'm doing everything for Krishna, that is bhakti. But people, because they want to be called karma yogis, because they like this title, but they don't want to work for Krishna, they say everything I do is for Krishna. because everything is Krishna. It's all Mayavad philosophy. In the second chapter, verse 39, the Lord explained two kinds of procedures, namely Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga. In this verse, the Lord explains the same more clearly. Sankhya Yoga, or the analytical study of the nature of spirit and matter, is the subject matter for persons who are inclined to speculate and understand things by experimental knowledge and philosophy. The other class of men work in Krishna consciousness, as it is explained in the 61st verse of second chapter. The Lord has explained also in the 39th verse that by working by the principles of Buddhi Yoga or Krishna consciousness, one can be relieved from the bonds of action. And furthermore, there is no flaw in the process. By working by the principles of Buddhi Yoga, one can be relieved from the bonds of action. Means no more entanglement. And there is no flaw in the process. The same principle is more clearly explained in the 61st verse, that this Buddhi Yoga is to depend entirely on the Supreme, or more specifically on Krishna. And in this way, all the senses can be brought under control very easily. So 61st verse, if we go to that verse. Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matpara. Vashehi yasyendriyani tasya pragya pratishtita. One who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control and fixes his consciousness upon me, is known as a man of steady intelligence. And how to control the senses or restrain the senses? Of course, that is if we engage them in the service of Krishna. Therefore, both the yogas are interdependent as religion and philosophy. So this is a very nice statement Prabhupada has given. Religion without philosophy is sentiment. Or sometimes it becomes fanaticism, while philosophy without religion is mental speculation only. So religion without philosophy, they both have to go hand in hand. It's not like, oh, I just follow the rules and rituals, but I don't know what's the logic behind it. Then it is sentiment. And as Prabhupada sometimes becomes fanaticism, and that we see in the world today, all over. People become fanatic without understanding what the Lord wants through religion. And if we just follow any philosophy without any religion, if we have understood the philosophy properly, suppose we go to the temple and follow Hindu religion practices. If we understand the philosophy, then the religion becomes very sweet. Then it becomes spiritual also. But otherwise, if we just follow the philosophy, just know, but don't practice it. Religion means going to the temple or doing other practice, means that's a practice, practical aspect. Then it is only mental speculation. If not going to the temple, because that has become a fashion also. Oh, people say I'm spiritual. I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. Well, what is spiritual? That's only speculation, sitting at home and doing some meditation and, oh, I'm spiritual. Well, spiritual means one who understands the philosophy and puts it into practice. The philosophy is serve Krishna. Krishna himself says, serve me. Man mana bhav mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskaru. So if we don't serve Krishna and we say, oh, I'm spiritual, then that's bogus also. So they all are interdependent, but we just have to understand properly how they are interdependent and how to how to work that all together. And Prabhupada, this is what Prabhupada did. He gave the philosophy and he gave the practices as well to follow, to give the whole complete package. The ultimate goal is Krishna, because the philosophers who are also sincerely searching after the absolute truth come in the end to Krishna consciousness. This is also stated in the Bhagavad Gita. The whole process is to understand the real position of the self in relation to the super self. The indirect process is philosophical speculation by which gradually one may come to the point of Krishna consciousness. And the other process is directly connecting everything with Krishna in Krishna consciousness. So mental speculation or philosophical speculation one may come, and this is what Krishna also says in later on, Bahunam janmanam ante jnanvanam prapadyate. After many, many births, one who has knowledge, he surrenders unto me. And in Bhakti Yoga, one surrenders automatically and then makes progress. Of these two, the path of Krishna consciousness is better because it doesn't depend on purifying the senses by a philosophical process. Krishna consciousness is itself the purifying process, and by the direct method of devotional service, it is simultaneously easy and sublime. Sublime also, Prabhupada used this word. Sublime means it's very, very powerful, but we don't know how it works, how this power acts on us. Very subtle and very, very powerful though. So Krishna, well, in the shloka, Krishna says, some are inclined, there are two paths, and some are inclined to understand by empirical, philosophical speculation, and others by devotional service. But Prabhupada gives in the commentary that devotional service, this is more powerful. Because this is what Krishna says himself in the later chapters of Bhagavad Gita. Na karmanam narambhan naishkarmyam purushoashnute na cha sanyas na deva siddhim samadhigacchati. Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. So sometimes people say, oh, I'm not going to work, so because I don't want any reactions. But here Krishna says, not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction. So one cannot run away from reaction just because one doesn't work openly. Because work always goes on. Soul is always active. Senses are always active. And this is actually Arjun's problem was. He wanted to run away. He wanted to give up and run away from the battlefield. But later on he got so confused by his own mental speculation of different logics. He himself was confused, and then he surrendered unto Krishna and asked him, please tell me what's the best thing for me to do. So here Krishna says, by merely abstaining from work, one cannot achieve freedom from reaction. The renounced order of life can be accepted when one has been purified by the discharge of the prescribed form of duties, which are laid down just to purify the hearts of materialistic men. So they're prescribed form of duties for everybody. Varnashram system, everybody has some duties to do. If we don't do those duties, then we are incurring sin. So by not doing something also we can get the reaction. Without purification, one cannot attain success by abruptly adopting the fourth order of life, sannyas. According to empirical philosophers, simply by adopting sannyas or retiring from fruitive activities, one at once becomes as good as Narayan. Well, that is Mayavad philosophy. But Lord Krishna does not approve this principle. Without purification of heart, sannyas is simply a disturbance to the social order. On the other hand, if someone takes to the transcendental service of the Lord, even without discharging his prescribed duties, whatever he may be able to advance in the cause is accepted by the Lord. Buddhi Yoga. Even a slight performance of such a principle enables one to overcome great difficulties. Even a slight performance of such a principle enables one to overcome great difficulties. See, there's a difference between bhakti yoga and other processes. Running away from work, saying, if Arjun as a Kshatriya doesn't do his duties, he will incur sin. And then he wants, because nobody can be inactive, has to do something. Then he says, no, I'll take sannyas, I'll go and live as a beggar. Well, that will create disturbance over there because he is not in that situation. That will create disturbance, more reactions. So what's the point in all this? Work has to be done. On the other hand, as Prabhupada says, if someone takes to transcendental service of the Lord, so if someone gets into bhakti, even Bhagavatam says that if one gives up his prescribed duties, but if it says that if one takes up bhakti yoga, but he falls down after making certain progress, then still there is no loss, because whatever progress he has made, it will always remain with him. And even if somebody follows the full rules of Varnashram Dharma and makes progress and lives his whole life according to the rules of Varnashram Dharma, then in the end, he hasn't gained nothing actually. So that is to tell us that Bhakti Yoga is the supreme. But if one does not get into Bhakti Yoga, but he is doing all this, then no, I don't want Grihastha Ashram now, I'm fed up, I'm frustrated, or I don't want to act as a Kshatriya because it's too much war and killing and this and that, I want to give up, I want to do this, or I want to do that. That creates a problem in the society. Just like if my hand says, no, I don't want the work of the hand, it's too much trouble, I just want to do the work of brain. Well, you're not qualified as a brain. Or I want to do the work of stomach. No, you're not stomach. You're hand. Work as a hand. That's it. So two different things. One is Varnashram. So this chapter is basically on Varnashram. That don't give up your activities. Do your duties. And here Krishna himself says, Nahi kaschit shanam api jatu tishtati akarma krit karite hi avashah karma sarva prakriti jair guna. Everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. So everyone is forced to act helplessly, avasha, according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature. And these qualities we have acquired based on our previous lives' desires and karmas and the consciousness we developed in the previous life. So everything is done by us only. Krishna just supplies, or Krishna's nature, energy, they just supply all these ingredients, but activity is ours. It's not a question of embodied life, but it's a nature of the soul to be always active. Without the presence of the spirit soul, the material body cannot move. The body is only a dead vehicle to be worked by the spirit soul, which is always active and cannot stop, even for a moment. As such, the spirit soul has to be engaged in the good work of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, it will be engaged in the occupations dictated by illusory energy. In contact with the material energy, the spirit soul acquires material modes. And to purify the soul from such affinities, it is necessary to engage in the prescribed duties enjoined in the Shastras. In contact with material energy, the spirit soul acquires material modes. Means, of course, spiritual soul is always spiritual. It doesn't change its nature. The consciousness gets covered over by these material modes. And to purify the soul from such affinities, it is necessary to engage in the prescribed duties enjoined in the Shastras. So Varnashram is set up in such a way that we make not a whole lot, but some spiritual progress as well. On the other hand, but if the soul is engaged in its natural function of Krishna consciousness, whatever he is able to do is good for him. So that's another aspect. But if it does its bhakti yoga, its service of Krishna, then whatever he is able to do, that is good. And this is the shloka that I was quoting earlier. If someone takes to Krishna consciousness, even though he may not follow the prescribed duties in the Shastras or execute the devotional service properly, and even though he may fall down from the standard, there is no loss or evil for him. But if he carries out all the injunctions for purification in the Shastras, what does it avail him if he is not Krishna conscious? So purification means some tapasya or dhyan or charity or going to the places of pilgrimage. They're all processes of purification. So purification from what? Purification from this material mode's effect on the consciousness. So Varnashram system established by Krishna himself for gradual progress of a soul. But unfortunately, even that whole Varnashram system now is completely gone. Nobody follows that. So therefore, sannyas or any purificatory process is to help reach the ultimate goal of becoming Krishna conscious, without which everything is considered a failure. So ultimate goal is to become Krishna conscious. This is what Krishna also says in Gita only later on. But people don't understand. Sannyas is not the goal. Goal is to become Krishna conscious. Sannyas is just a process. But that too, one should not take sannyas untimely. That can create problem in the society also. Karmendriyani samyamya yaste manasa smaran indriyarthan vimulatma mithyachara sauchyate. One who restrains the senses of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. So one who restrains the senses of action means if I'm sitting down and trying to do my bhajan, japa, or if I'm trying to show off, so I'm controlling my senses of action, but mind, that's the most difficult sense to control. But whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. There are many pretenders who refuse to work in Krishna consciousness, but make a show of meditation while actually dwelling within the mind upon sense enjoyment. Such pretenders may also speak on dry philosophy in order to bluff sophisticated followers. But according to this verse, these are the greatest cheaters. So they're pretending that, oh, I'm such a great sadhu and I don't want to do any sense gratification, but the mind is always going there. And then where the mind goes, one may follow that. But this give big philosophy, talk big philosophy, and bluff the sophisticated followers. For sense enjoyment, one can act in any capacity of the social order. But if one follows the rules and regulations of his particular status, he can make gradual progress in purifying his existence. But he who makes a show of being a yogi while actually searching for the objects of sense gratification must be called the greatest cheater, even though he sometimes speaks of philosophy. His knowledge has no value because the effects of such a sinful man's knowledge are taken away by the illusory energy of the Lord. Such a pretender's mind is always impure, and therefore his show of yogic meditation has no value whatsoever. So heavy for the yogis. But in case of devotees, because Prabhupada always brings devotional aspect into his purports. So we can also say, oh, when I'm chanting or I'm trying to chant, trying to concentrate, but mind always goes here and there. It's very difficult to control. So I'm also a pretender. Well, in our case, first of all, we are not claiming to be pure devotees. And we always claim that we are struggling, we are aspiring devotee. So aspiring devotee, it's not an excuse that the mind goes in and there, but it is expected. We still have to control the mind, bring it back and let it hear the holy name when we are chanting. So it's a struggle. We also speak on philosophy, big philosophy based on Prabhupada's books. But as an aspirant follower, we always say, this is what Prabhupada has written. We are also trying to follow. We are also struggling to follow. But the result is the spiritual master or Prabhupada is pleased by our efforts. And if he is pleased, Krishna will definitely be pleased. So for devotees, there is a different viewpoint or different outcome. Mind is always going to run here and there, always going to go to the sense objects. But we admit it and we keep going. But not the one who makes a show of that, oh no, I am renounced, I am completely in control, but still the mind is going here and there. And further, Krishna says, Yasvindriyani manasa niyamya rabhate arjuna karmendriya karma yogam asakta savishishyate. On the other hand, if a sincere person tries to control the active senses by the mind and begins karma yoga in Krishna consciousness without attachment, he is by far superior. This is what the position of a devotee is. Although here Krishna says begins karma yogam asaktaha savishishyate. So karma yoga, but karma yoga, Prabhupada explained that this is in Krishna consciousness or bhakti. So instead of becoming a pseudo-transcendentalist for the sake of wanton living and sense enjoyment, it is far better to remain in one's own business and execute the purpose of life, which is to get free from material bondage and enter into the kingdom of God. So it's far better to remain in one's own business. So He's telling Arjun, you better remain in your business of killing. But remain as a karma yogi, or Prabhupada actually in Krishna consciousness. The prime Swartha Gati, or goal of self-interest, is to reach Vishnu. The whole institution of Varna and Ashram is designed to help us reach this goal of life. A householder can also reach this destination by regulated service in Krishna consciousness. For self-realization, one can live a controlled life as prescribed in the Shastras and continue carrying out his business without attachment, and in that way make progress. A sincere person who follows this method is far better situated than the false pretender who adopts show bottle spiritualism to cheat the innocent public. A sincere sweeper in the street is far better than the charlatan meditator who meditates only for the sake of making a living. Very, very heavy statement. A sincere sweeper is far better because he is performing his activities according to his Varna and Ashram. Then the charlatan meditator. Charlatan means a show-off, who meditates only for the sake of making a living. It doesn't mean every meditator is a show-off. No, it doesn't. It's just one who has given up his prescribed duties, but he's taken up some other prescribed duties just to show off, so that people can come and give some money, donation, and give some good food to eat. And I'll just sit here and make a show of meditation. So that is worst. That's worst guy. But there could be real good meditators, sincere ones. So that's okay. They could be in that position. So I guess I can stop here. So it's a little too technical, and I don't want to confuse you too much today. So we can stop here and see anybody has any questions or comments first.
मुझे बहुत ध्यान से सुनना पड़ रहा था.
I know. तभी मैं ज़्यादा श्लोक नहीं कवर करना चाहता.
I'm just reading each and every word and just trying to understand क्या हो रहा है, कैसे चल रहा है.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Quite
Thank
technical,
you,
Prabhuji. तो second time I'm reading it, still ऐसा लगता है कि बिल्कुल blank है.
I know, even I feel the same. मैं तो first time ही पढ़ रही हूँ बार-बार.
अच्छा.
It takes long time.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why Prabhuji, I feel I mean, as many times I can attend some. I think it will be better for us.
Yeah, इसको बार-बार पढ़ते रहो, तभी समझ में आता.
Yeah.
And another thing, Prabhuji, जब when we are reading ना, then ये ऐसा लगता है कि हाँ, understood. And next line gone. फिर पिछला जो पढ़ा है वो सब भूल गया.
But thank you so much, Prabhuji. I mean,
Yeah.
I think
Thank
only
you,
because
Mata.
of you we could do that. No, otherwise, no way.
It's a good learning for me also, Mata. More I learn and more I read, more I learn. That's what happens.
Only because of you. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mata.
Thank you so much.
Chalo, you have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna.
Thank
Jai
you.
Srila
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.